when this whole tithing controversy started, I tried a little bit to just like make my own contribution and add my voice to the ongoing debate. And I remember that on my Facebook page, I wrote a piece about tithing. From my little research that I did from the scriptures, I was able to write something. But as the controversy grows, I keep thinking, I keep feeling this prompting in my spirit to just do a video and correct some impression, because unfortunately now we're living in an era where deception has taken center stage, especially in what we call churches today. There's a lot of redundancy, there's a lot of ignorance, especially in our part of the world, in the place you call Nigeria. Churches in Nigeria have dumbed the people down so much that people can't even question. You feel like you're committing a sin when you're trying to question authority or question something that you don't understand. And people are really beginning to live like that. They pretty much have resigned to their fate. And, you can't challenge what Papa said, what Daddy said, or what Mommy is saying. You can't even go to your Bible to check whether what they're saying is true or not. Just take it that way, which is very wrong. And that's not what God expects of us. And so I believe that we have also entered into a generation, into an era in human existence when, in Christian terminology, you can call it the days of Elijah. These are the days when the book of Joel described it. He said, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh. So don't be surprised when you see people like Daddy Freeze doing what he's doing. God said, if my own will not praise me, I'm going to raise up stones to speak the truth. And I'm making this video to tell the whole world that I totally agree with Daddy Freeze on so many fronts. It's just that there's one impression that I want to correct. But before I correct that impression, let me say and state it categorically that I agree with him that tithing is a thing of the old. Tithing was an order, an instruction that was given to the children of Israel. There's nothing that you're going to explain to anybody about it. Any preacher who thinks that they know their onions, any daddy or any papa or any bishop who think that they know the Bible very well, I give them this challenge today. Pick up that Bible, go on national television, and prove to the rest of us and the rest of the world that tithing is a New Testament exercise. If you can prove that, of course, I don't have to be the one to agree. Everybody will look at you and know whether you're telling the truth or not. We're all going to carry our Bible and then we're going to listen to you and know that there's nowhere in the Bible, in the New Testament, where the Bible says you have to pay the tithe. There's nowhere in the Bible that it implies that by not paying the tithe that you are committing any sin. It is not true. Now, let me tell you something that will shock you. And this is why I think that our preachers in Nigeria have to eat the humble pie and just go to their congregation and apologize to them, or find a way to just kind of sugarcoat it and make it look okay and let them know that, even though this has happened, this is still there too. So I'm going to help you. When I finish the presentation, I'll tell the preachers what you need to do so you guys can stop running scared. Okay, you don't have to go to your church and make the people feel like they're fools and tell them this is this and that. No, forget about that guy that is talking. No. You don't need to brush that out. It makes the people feel like they are fools. You make them. You're literally telling your church members that they are just nothing. They don't have anything upstairs. You understand? When you see a truth staring people in the face, we live in a social media age now. We've lived into this media age, and people are seeing information. There's an explosion of information everywhere. You don't have to just come out and with a wave of the hand and just brush it aside. No, you have to come up with a superior argument. And I'm going to give you a suggestion. If you're a preacher, if you're a papa or a bishop, I'll tell you what exactly you need to tell your church people so that this thing doesn't eat deep into the souls of the churchgoers and make them begin to feel cold about everything. Now, let me tell you what you didn't know. Do you know, and now, I don't know of any evangelistic organization or Christian organization that is bigger than that of Billy Graham. Billy Graham is more like the great-grandfather of evangelism in the world. Do you know, I'm not sure if you know this, do you know that the Billy Graham evangelistic movement, or evangelistic, what did they call it? Yeah, Billy Graham evangelistic movement. They have already done a report. They have issued a disclaimer. They have actually said the same thing that Daddy Freeze has been saying, that I have also written about. Billy Graham. They admitted, okay, let me read you what they said on their own website. Look at this, okay? You can look it up. It's on the web. Go to billygraham.org. You can find it there. It says Christians who want to please the Lord often have questions about tithing. The dictionary defines the word tithe as a tenth part of something paid as a voluntary contribution or as a tax, especially for the support of a religious establishment. It was a common practice in the Old Testament. And the required, listen to this, it was a common practice in the Old Testament and was required of members of the nation of Israel. It was required of the members of the nation of Israel. This is Billy Graham website. They admitted, okay, if you think I'm just picking up some parts of it to read, here is this. Here's another write-up when you go there. I don't want to read everything, but this is another one here. It said, other Christians who tithe do so simply because they respect the Old Testament principle. They call it here an Old Testament principle. Having said it was meant for the children, for the people of Israel, all right? Now, and find it, they say, other Christians who tithe do so simply because they respect the Old Testament principle and find it helpful place, and find it a helpful place to begin in their giving. They do not believe, however, that tithing is a New Testament obligation. Now, listen to their own. They say, it is not mentioned in the New Testament except where it is describing Old Testament practices, or in the Gospels where Jesus is addressing people who were under the Old Testament law. This is Billy Graham Evangelistic Organization, making it clear to people. Now, he went further and he said, a New Testament teaching on giving may be helpful to you, and it is found in 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verse 2. He said, on the first day of every week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with his income, which is money, a gathering for the saints. Now, this is where the thing comes in. If you are a preacher, rather than deny or shove it aside, just stand in front of the congregation and tell them you have heard all the controversy about tithing going all over the place. Well, it is not false. The truth of the matter is that the Bible didn't actually make it. It's not a New Testament thing. Neither Jesus nor his disciples paid tithe. But what I can also tell you guys is that paying tithe as well is not a sin. Because when Abraham paid tithe, Abraham paid it voluntarily. Abraham on his own decided to give voluntarily. It was 100 years after that tithing became a law as attached to the nation of Israel. And who were the people given the tithing thing to be collecting? It was the Levites. It became their own portion. It's like when you do a will. That was what their own will gave to them. It was their own portion. It was their inheritance. It hasn't changed up to today. And why was it the inheritance? Because that was supposed to be for the firstborn, but the firstborn messed up. And it was the Levites who actually were the one that stood by the Lord when the children of Israel made idol and they were worshiping the idols, and the Lord was so enraged and he needed somebody to avenge for him. It was the Levites who stood on the side of the Lord and avenged for the nonsense that they did. And so they inherited that. It became their inheritance. So the house of Levi are the ones collecting this thing. So you tell your church members and say, look, this is what the truth is. But of course, you know that the Bible also supports that you should give for the work of God to go on, which is 1 Corinthians now chapter 16 verse 2. You can tell them. And that even makes it easier for you as a church leader, because in this case now, anybody who is giving can even give more than 10%. You can decide to give 10% or 15 or 20 or 35%, or you give less, depending now on how they view the pastor or the preacher using the money that he is receiving. The only big problem for you now is that you have to do more with the money that you receive from the church, because the church members are now going to give based on what they see you doing with the money. If you frolic around with the money and do all kinds of nonsense with the money, they're not going to give you. But if you're doing more, you will see more people paying even more than 10% to support the work of God in the ministry. This is the truth of the matter. We cannot let some daddy free somewhere to be the one telling us the truth of what is happening in the church. It simply means that the church people, the preachers we have around, are thieves, which is so wrong. And I hate to say that, but that's what it feels like. The preachers are not fraudsters. They are preachers, and that's why you need to wake up. If you are not a thief, you're not a fraudster, you are not a manipulator, you stand in front of the church. Don't be afraid. Tell your church people. Say, this is the truth. That's what is in the Bible. That's exactly what Billy Graham's organization just did. Clearly. And because of that, so many people were drawn to them and started giving. So as a preacher, stand up and tell your church members and say, listen, this is the truth. It's not hidden. It is in plain sight. But it is not also a crime to pay tithe. It's just that it is not compulsory. And I can tell you that I read one post on WhatsApp where somebody was saying that when you pay a tithe, you're committing a sin. It's not true. It's not a sin. Just that we have held in Christendom for a long time that if you don't pay your tithe, you are committing a sin. Oh, how can a man rob me? Can a man rob God? All those kind of quotes that we used to scare people. That is all lies. But it is not a sin to pay the tithe. It is not. It is a voluntary thing. Tithe just means 10% off, which you can give to anybody, which you can even give to orphanage. But if you're paying it into a church, it is not a crime. It is not a sin. And we need to make that clear. So that's why as a pastor, you should not be scared of telling your church members that this is actually true, but it is actually not even wrong for you to do that. So you decide whether I'm doing well with the money you pay into the church. If I'm doing well, then you should even do more than 10%. And that will lay it to rest. The only other impression I wanted to correct is where I heard that Daddy Freeze said, you can take your money, buy beer, and go to church. No, I don't agree with that. And that does not mean that the Bible expressly said that drinking beer is a sin. I will tell you why you will not find a bottle of beer in my house, and it's been like that for decades. Why I cannot drink brandy, I can't drink all this hard liquor. Let me tell you why. It's in the Bible. Go to Proverbs chapter 20 verse 1. The Bible says here, it says, wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. So it is not about, it's not a journey of, it's not really a thing of righteousness and sin when it comes to beer and strong drink. It is rather an issue of wisdom and foolishness. And so what I have done is that I have chosen not to be a foolish person. And I've been to places several times where people ask me, why is it that you don't want to take alcohol? You don't smoke, you don't drink. Why? Take some little liquor. And I say, no, I hate to come to a place or be anywhere in my life and not be conscious of what is going on, because that is absolute foolishness. You go to a place, you take a strong drink, and everything you say for the whole time that you're drunk, you don't even know. That is foolishness. And another dimension to it is where the Bible said, if you know that what you're eating is going to cause your brother to fall into sin, stay away from it. These are biblical principles. And I made that choice. I'm not going to encourage anybody to go and carry beer and be drinking inside the church on Sunday. But it doesn't also mean that the Bible expressly said if you drink beer, you go to hell. No. It's like sin. Sin is all around us. And God is not going to say because you live in a world that is filled with sin, you're going to go to hell automatically. No, it is when you play around and let the sin control you, you let it enter into you and control you, you go to hell. Do you understand? So that's what it is. We cannot encourage people to drink beer in church. It's not possible. It is a thing about foolishness and wisdom. You make a choice. And I have chosen not to be foolish. And I have chosen not to let a younger person who will look at me and say, my goodness, is drinking beer, and then he'll fall aside and God will hold me. I have chosen not to do that. So that in itself is not something that should be encouraged. But again, let me repeat it. It is not expressly written anywhere in the Bible that when you drink beer that you have committed sin. It's just that in the process, you will most likely end up committing sin against God. So isn't it better that you just stay away from it? We need to read our scriptures. We need to understand the Bible. This passivity that we see today in today's church is becoming too nauseating. It's becoming so alarming. I don't even know how to express it. I don't even know how to explain. It is completely incomprehensible. Like you walk into a church, you can't even tell the difference between the church you walked into and the club that is down the street. Because the people are just nobody. People, if I know when you ask people about carry your Bible, they say, no, but I have it on my phone. Even the one on the phone, they don't read it. They don't know. Somebody can walk up to a Christian and tell him something that's totally unacceptable, totally non-existent, and tell them is in the Bible. And they will agree because they don't know what is in the Bible. How it has taken Daddy Freeze. Listen, Daddy Freeze to wake the Christians up, millions of Christians all over the world. You see, when we put this tithing thing into play now, you know what is going to help? It's going to make the preachers sit up. Now, when they get money from their churches, they will use it properly. They will do the right thing with it. People have been set free by this knowledge, and I'm endorsing it today. People need to be set free. And it's also going to discourage a lot of religious jobbers who just feel that, who call themselves and say that God has called them. When things are not going right, the best way is to jump into church. At least by the time you get 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, 20 people pay tithe, man, you know what I'm going to become. Nah, money will be everywhere. I will take a trip abroad, go to Europe, go to London. It is about to be over. Now it has to be based on what you do. People are going to keep their eyes open to watch you and see what you're doing with the money that they're putting in your hands. I was in the Ukraine to do a documentary for Pastor Sunday Adela just several years ago about what he was doing in the Ukraine. We did a documentary on the things that he set up, the NGOs and the charitable activities that he was involved in, how that he picks people from the streets and he takes care of them, and it is for real, it's not for cameras. He does this, and he was doing so many, and he's still doing them. You will come to his church and say literally people who were street-bound adults, they have become rich men, they become millionaires, and he just picked them from the street, cleaned them up. And this is how an Australian billionaire came to his church and said, for what I have seen, I am going to take my money and give you. You can imagine how much a billionaire would drop in his hands. There are so many people today who have so much money, don't know what to do with the money. They're even about to die. They don't have any next of kin. They're looking for a good church that is really doing something with the money. They want to give that money to them, but they can't find any. You come to Nigeria, you won't find any. We have churches in Nigeria, private jets everywhere, the biggest churches, biggest auditorium, everything. And yet, look at our society. We build schools, and children in the church cannot afford to go to school that you built. Our churches in Nigeria can comfortably lend billions of dollars to nations in Africa and not even bet an eyelid, and nothing will even happen. I'm not talking hundreds of billions. Single churches can lend billions of dollars to African countries, to different countries in the world, and not feel anything. Can you believe that? And yet, the same churches will build schools, and the church members cannot afford to go to those schools. That is absolutely evil. And now that the tithing thing has been exposed, I think that everybody's going to sit up. I saw a video that was trending on WhatsApp about a preacher in Port Harcourt or so who just opened the school, and everything is free, from feeding to tuition to uniform to everything. He needs commendation. I don't care where he's from or whatever he's doing. He needs commendation, and everybody else should borrow a leaf from that. Let us try to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. Enough of all this robbery. Enough of all this shame that we're bringing upon the body of Christ. Enough.